You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Despite it being a tough schedule in terms of who they're facing, it actually broke in a pretty good way in terms of the home and the road splits, meaning the home games are generally against opponents that Syracuse talent-wise is either going to have more talent than, or it's going to be about the same. And the road games, well, they're just already going to be challenging because they're on the road and they're playing their toughest teams, at least on paper, on the road. But it breaks out in a way where Syracuse simply handles its business at home against teams that they have somewhat equal talent to, or maybe even more talent to, that they'll end up making a bowl without having to win a road game. But having said that, despite the home schedule, which we'll get to in just a second, you want a little bit of margin for error even at home. Here is the home schedule for Syracuse, okay? In order, you got UConn, Colgate, Duke, Pittsburgh, North Carolina, and Boston College. Again, these are all matchups against opponents where Syracuse either has more talent or it's going to be about the same. You can argue that the opponent has maybe a little bit more talent to them, but I think that gets countered by the fact that Syracuse would be at home. Home field is always an advantage, right? But I don't think Syracuse is going to go 6-0 at home. It's tough to go undefeated even at home. Last year, Syracuse had 7 home games. You would think that Syracuse would go 7-0, but they went 6-1. Their one loss came in that third game against Stanford off a bye, and it just proves that even superior teams, superior talent at home, they can lose. It happens. You can have an off game. So having said that, this leads us to the road schedule and needing that margin for error to secure a bowl appearance this upcoming season. You got, in order, Tennessee, which is a neutral site game in Atlanta, but I consider that a road game because you're not playing in the JMA Wireless Dome. And you're also not playing in the state of New York or anything like that. You're playing in Atlanta. Best case, you're hoping for a 50-50 split of the fan base. That's the best case. But you got Tennessee, Clemson, SMU, Georgia Tech, Miami, Notre Dame. Again, it's a pretty difficult road slate. Now, can Syracuse find 2 wins from that road slate? And I think they can. On paper, at least on paper, I should say, Clemson and Notre Dame appear to be the toughest matchups. Those seem to be kind of, you just got to hope and pray that Syracuse could at least be competitive. But it's going to be very difficult for Syracuse to beat one of Clemson or Notre Dame on the road in 2025. That being said, Syracuse and Death Valley historically over the past few years, they've actually done quite well, even though it hasn't translated to a win. In 2018, they lost in a heartbreaker, a 27-23 loss to Clemson. In 2020, the score is 47-21 Clemson, so you'd think it's a blowout, but Syracuse was within 6 points late in the third quarter. And keep in mind that 2020 Syracuse team was not very good. For those that don't know, that 2020 Syracuse team, which was my freshman year in college, by the way, at Syracuse, so I got a nice introduction to Syracuse football. They went 1-10. They were pretty terrible in 2020. And yet they still hung in there with Clemson through 3 quarters. Clemson was a good team that year. They had Trevor Lawrence. In 2022, this was another heartbreaker. Syracuse lost 27-21. I really do not want to get into it. But the point being is that even though Clemson and Notre Dame are, at least on paper, on the surface, the 2 toughest road games, one of them in Clemson, Syracuse has handled itself. Maybe they can get the breaks this time when they go to Clemson. I know that Clemson is not going to take Syracuse lightly because of that. Having said that, every other game on the road schedule, you look at and you say, I think Syracuse can have a puncher's chance of winning. Tennessee, week 1, weird stuff can happen in week 1. Syracuse is only a 12.5-point underdog. That's giving them a puncher's chance to win that game. SMU, no doubt it's going to be tough, but can they really recapture the magic that they had a year ago to the college football playoff? Maybe they will, but I don't know if they will be as good. And if maybe SMU this year, instead of winning, I think it was 11 regular season games last year, instead of that, maybe they win only 8 or 9. And so they have a few losses. Maybe Syracuse is one of them. Again, even a superior talent team can lose at home. We just saw last year with Syracuse losing to Stanford. They shouldn't have lost to Stanford, but you know what? They did. Georgia Tech, tough physical team, but I don't think it's impossible that Syracuse can go into Georgia Tech and win. And then you got Miami. We have no idea how Carson Beck is going to be this upcoming season. He's their starting quarterback. Is he going to be healthy? Well, we'll know by then because it's late in the year. But Miami, this is no shade at them, but it's just their stadium and the proximity to campus. It's not the most intimidating home field advantage to go into Miami and win. It's going to be really hot, but I'm more worried about maybe Miami's talent than I am necessarily about home and road matchup. So overall, I look at Syracuse and I look at their team goals. Obviously, we want Syracuse to make a bowl in 2025. And I think the best way for them to do that is they got to steal not one, but 2 road games on their schedule. Because if they win 2 road games, then you start looking at the home schedule. You can find 4 wins in their home schedule from a slate of UConn, Colgate, Duke, Pitt, North Carolina, Boston College. You beat UConn, you beat Colgate. Right now you got 4 wins by stealing 2 on the road. And then you just need to split 4 ACC games. That's all. So you want that margin for error.